This video probably shouldn't exist, and it's because everything in me right now is trying to get me to quit. There's simply so much resistance to doing this right now. But how did I get here? And what can I do now that I'm in this situation? Because if you've ever felt like I'm feeling right now, or in the future you will feel this way, then I feel like this could hold some value. The goal is obviously not to quit. If I actually do want to keep doing this and instead I'm just being hit by a barrage of resistance, that's ultimately not me, it's just I'm feeling a whole bunch of pushback in the other direction, then how do I get my intentions, and not my perhaps survival brain's intentions, which we're going to get into, to win? Because all of this kickback that I'm getting right now is the work of the survival brain, which is overreacting. But first of all, to answer the question of how I ended up in this state, for the last hour and a half I've been trying to put together a script for a new YouTube video, and I've been going from video to video to video, not really feeling as though I'm making much progress, and I'm not feeling confident about making a video, and I don't know what I'm doing, and all these stories which are seeming to take over right now. And all of this uncertainty and perceived failure started to bring up a lot of resistance in me, because I started feeling as though I couldn't do it. And I really wanted to get a video done tonight, blah 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 blah. Basically the resistance started getting so strong that it was like my only option was to just stop, quit altogether. Because this wasn't just about carrying out an action anymore, it was also about trying to continue in the face of emotional and mental walls. Turns out there is a psychological term for what's happening here, and it refers to a kind of distortion that the brain makes where it starts perceiving things to be far more difficult or far more complex than they really are, because I suppose you're looking through the lens of your feelings. Our feelings are part of the goggles that we use to look through into the world. And if they're all fogged up by the uncertainty and the stress and the anxiety of what you're doing, then the task itself is going to appear more difficult. As I'm saying this, it sounds obvious. Of course it's more difficult to work under those circumstances, and of course things are going to feel harder. But the issue is we really do believe that it's as difficult as it seems, and we are unable to pull ourselves out of it and realize that we are in the midst of a storm. In other words, it's not the place to be making these kinds of conclusions in. Because from inside the storm, all you can see is all the stuff blowing around and the fact that you're being knocked over, and you're barely able to see what's in front of you. So when we over-perceive the difficulty or complexity of a task that we're doing due to our emotions, this is called amplification. And the issue with amplification is that it builds on itself. Once it's started, all of the emotions that are causing it in the first place have more reason to grow and become more uncertain about what's going on, which creates more amplification, which creates more emotions, and so on and so on. This is the exact conditions which bring about a sense of avoidance and needing to stop what we're doing altogether and quit and never come back because it's too dangerous and it's too unpleasant. You're not really wanting to quit the task per se, you're just not wanting to feel overwhelmed anymore, and we kind of get those two confused, I suppose. So it's not you doing all this stuff, it's pre-built survival mechanisms which have been around for a heck of a long time. These parts of the brain were useful all the way back in the tribal days when things really were seriously uncertain, and any of this kind of anticipation of danger could save our lives. But nowadays it just happens all the time under safe circumstances. Unfortunately, the mind hasn't evoluted far enough to perceive the difference between threats which are just happening in our heads and threats which are actually outside of us and can be seen and perceived. So now that we understand a bit more about what's going on, what do we do? How do we break out of the state of needing to quit and be able to move forward again? Well, what I learned is that you can decide to keep fighting in the storm and keep trying to work under these really difficult inner circumstances. But as you keep doing that, the storm just seems to get louder and louder and louder. So what really helped before shooting this video is I just decided to stop trying for a while, because I was writing a completely different script to this video. And I took a step back and I just decided to use the inner body awareness technique by Eckhart Tolle, where I just feel the energy in my hands and feet and I focus on that. I feel the the subtle buzzing and the vibrations that you can tune into. And I put all my attention there. And the storm kind of continues to rage, but you're not fueling it anymore. And I just stayed here, I think, for a few minutes. And once I came back and I was no longer focusing on my hands and feet anymore, I realized that I'd created some very intentional distance between myself and the storm. Because when you're in the storm, it's very easy to become the storm. When you're at the point where you want to quit something, your priority is no longer doing the work, it's to regain clarity. And to regain clarity, we have to stop throwing fuel on the fire in the same way that we were before. Sometimes you're not able to realize just how hijacked you were until you get this kind of space from it. Once you've gained a bit of separation in this way, it's not like the survival mechanisms just turn off, but you're not in the worst of it anymore. As I said, we're not continuing to fuel it. And from there, once you've gained some separation, you can start to work on making small, non-threatening, gentle actions towards your goal rather than these big grandiose steps which have really upset the survival mind and have created this sense of avoidance. You have to just find a way that works for you to keep going. It's better to try than to stop altogether. And we just have to be a bit more intentional and possibly gentle about the way that we're trying. We want to be aware of our internal state when we start breaking into the territory where we start perceiving that our survival mechanisms have come online and are trying to push us away from action. We're not trying to fight those mechanisms, we're trying to understand them, gain some perspective, separate from them, and be able to keep moving in a way which doesn't continue to threaten it. And I'm still learning to do this. This is a work in progress. This video was a proof of concept because I've never felt so much resistance before to doing this work. But I just kept going, and so should you if this is something that you really care about. You can have all the voices in the world telling you that you can't do this and you should stop, but they don't have any power over you if you understand them and can learn to keep taking action despite them in a way which doesn't aggravate the survival mechanism more. The moments where you feel like you want to quit are your greatest opportunities for triumph, and you should take them as difficult as they are and just keep moving because you will be a champion for doing so. I wish you all the best and appreciate your time.